Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the newest album from Big Sean, titled Dark Sky Paradise. Gotta be honest, I haven't been looking forward to this, because those of you who are familiar enough with this series probably know that I'm not a fan of Big Sean, something that seems to baffle his bewildering number of fans. And if you take a look at his highest charting singles, it'd be hard to disagree with my opinion here. I mean, this is a rapper whose first and biggest hit was a song with Nicki Minaj called Ass, that seemed to be made on a bet to see how asinine hip-hop could be, no pun intended. This is a guy, for no adequately explained reason, showed up on a Fall Out Boy record on what was otherwise a pretty damn good song to completely miss the point for 16 bars, delivering a nasal whine that completely lacked any sort of presence or lyrical punch, and stole a punchline from goddamn Simple Plan. But you know what? Those were aesthetic quibbles, isolated incidents. Going deeper, was there anything more to the guy? Well, I'll say this, at his best he worked with some producers that I did like, such as No ID, and he did have some personality, which can do a fair bit to redeem some lyrical deficiencies. And while Big Sean is not a terrible technical lyricist, his punchlines are so basic and corny and his vocal style is so cartoonishly nasal that I only really found him entertaining when he was trying to be funny, which he often isn't. Coupled with incredibly thin subject matter that's barely descriptive or interesting, there's so little dimension to Big Sean for me to grasp beyond the moments that just plain irritate me. And don't even get me started on when he's trying to be hard. I'm sorry, he's got nowhere near the heavier timbre or presence in his voice to pull that off. He doesn't sound imposing or threatening, he sounds laughable. And the sad fact is that the majority of the time, he's either not funny or not trying to be funny, and that's kind of sad. Now that being said, when I heard the title of this album was Dark Sky Paradise, I laughed my ass off. As I said, we wouldn't let symphonic metal or goth rock get away with that, and somehow Big Sean's getting a pass, coupled with some pretty damn awful opening singles to boot. And I wasn't enthused by the changes in his producer lineup either. I mean, you swapped out No ID and the Neptunes for Mike Will Made It and DJ Mustard. Sure, you might have gotten what is popular right this second, but dark minimalism and atmosphere was the last thing that Big Sean needed for his usual bars of clumsy bragging and luxury rap. But you all kept asking that I review this album, so what did we get? Well, honestly, it was a bit better than I was expecting. I'm not saying this album is anything close to great or awesome or within spitting distance or the stronger rap records this year, but it's not terrible and it does show Big Sean steadily improving. And while there are definitely songs that are pretty damn bad, there are also a few songs that showed a little bit of promise, enough that I can kind of start to see what people might see in Big Sean. So okay, let's get the obvious issues that I haven't gone away with Big Sean. Let's get those out of the way first. I'm still not a fan of his more nasal delivery, especially when he tries to get more hyped up and just comes across as unnecessarily exaggerated, and I'm torn whether this is him lacking charisma or him trying to play up the more cartoonish side, because what's kind of odd about it is it feels very much like an affectation that he puts on, because there are points where he does intensify his flow on some songs and his delivery, and it's not nearly as bad on some points. And I think I've nailed down my issue with his technical wordplay as well. He tries to cram too many words into each one of his bars instead of maintaining any sort of syllabic structure or real rhyming meter. The frustrating thing is that if he cut out some of the filler words and put his bars through a tighter edit, he could land some tighter punches. Now, sure, it wouldn't get rid of him rhyming words with themselves or repeating words and phrases to fill up space or the corny as hell punchlines, but you know what? It'd be a step in the right direction, I can see that. Now, granted, it's not like many of his guest stars are a good influence on Big Sean. I've already talked about the Drake contribution to Blessings on Billboard Breakdown, but when Kanye West squanders what is actually a pretty well-structured verse on All Your Fault to jack Big Sean's flow for the following song, compare himself to Tom Cruise as a positive, which makes way too much sense in the worst possible way, and compare him tearing the city up with his success to the protest after Eric Garner's death, I'm sorry, you got a problem with that. And the sad thing is that it's actually one of the better songs, because their trade-off bars on the third verse, it's actually really solid. Kanye actually shows up again to sing a heavily auto-tuned chorus on the piano ballad, One Man Can Change the World with John Legend, who really, it should have just been him, the only person on that hook, and it distracts from what otherwise is a pretty damn good song about an inspirational tribute to his grandmother. But outside of that, well, you got E40 of all people who shows up to deliver the best verse in I Don't Fuck With You. Not saying much considering how pathetic that song is, with Big Sean's repeated assertions that he doesn't care about ex-girlfriend and Glee starlet Naya Rivera, which shows wrong with every single bar and the most grating vocal affectation yet. Then you got Chris Brown and Ty Dolla $ign try to add R&B credit to Play No Games, a sex jam that Big Sean can't pull off, thanks to not balancing the sensual sensual with sexual in his lyrics remotely well, and Lil Wayne tries to add some depth to deep, where the most introspective we get is why Big Sean doesn't get respect in the industry and what he'd be without money or fame. The most disappointing guest performance, though, comes from Jhené Aiko, who shows up twice on this album, first with uncredited backing vocals on Win Some Lose Some, to Big Sean playing the more money, more problems game and claiming that he's a victim, which I have a really hard time buying, and second in this heavily pitch-corrected, washed-out hookup song that's too leaden and slow and dark to be as sexy as it wants to be. Really, both the performances were disappointment. She's better than that. But coming back to Lil Wayne for a moment, his larger point in his verse is that you need to keep pushing boundaries to make potent art. And you know what, maybe this is one of the reasons that Big Sean just doesn't resonate with me whatsoever, because so much of his content is so safe, by the numbers, and formulaic with surface level introspection at best. And sure, he's more of a pop rapper, he can typically get away with that, but the best artists in this lane can interweave their smarter bars with the formula, make it palatable to the mainstream, or at least intensify what little dimension you have into something that's really potent. And you know what, to his credit, Big Sean does actually have a few moments where he kind of does this. I actually kind of likes that moment of pause on Win Some Lose Some, where he reflects upon the example that he's setting to the younger generation. Not enough to actually change it, mind you, because he follows that song with the drunken luxury rap party anthem Stay Down, which really isn't that good. And while Paradise, that song, it isn't remotely deep, it does have a few solid lines I liked and enough anger to make it one of the more intense songs, even despite some of Big Sean's consistent lyrical problems. And the song Outro seems to have Big Sean complaining about people trying to take advantage of him and how they don't want to hear him get political. But has Big Sean ever really tried to get political? It's the same thing I said when Drake had a very similar bar on his final track on that mixtape 6 p.m. in New York. As much as you might say the radio won't play that political material, when I don't see anything even on the deep cuts of this album that reveals that level of insight or philosophy, I just don't buy that there's anything there to begin with. So okay, forget all that. What if we simply look at this as like a fun party record? Well, on that note, we're looking at production and instrumentation. And again, if you're trying to make fun party music, why are you opting for such dark, dreary, pseudo-gothic instrumentation? It's either in the minimalist chill of DJ Mustard or the rumbling thunder, bells, and ghostly vocals. That doesn't fit here. With Drake, it kinda made sense because he was angling for a harsher rap vibe, but Big Sean doesn't even have that. So why give him production that demands that sort of content and delivery, which he's not bringing to the table? And the frustrating thing is that, you know what, there are some solid instrumental moments here that I did like. The choppy sampling and gothic vocals brightened with the Ambrosia sample on All Your Fault, courtesy of Kanye's production, the wet rattle of the more soulful Play No Games, the melancholic piano of One Man Can Change the World, or the rain-soaked old school soul of Outro. Hell, I'd argue that Mike Will made it, in a refreshing change of pace, dropped one of the better beats on this album with Paradise, with the cavernous production, the horns, and that sizzling fuzz. Granted, it doesn't help matters that there are so many tracks that are overloaded with pitch-shifted vocals, which I never like, and it becomes even especially grating all across this album. Many tracks are just ruined by them. And you know, all this is a matter of tone. For as much as Big Sean makes pretty lightweight hip-hop in his delivery and content, the instrumental tone just doesn't match it at all, and Big Sean rarely brings enough sharp, interesting wordplay to save it, even here. And it really doesn't help matters that at the end of the day, the elements that stick out with me the most for Big Sean are those that kind of annoy me, which tends to even spoil the good time vibe of his better songs. As I described, there are scattered moments that I like on this album, and if you find Big Sean's persona less grating and his technical limitations easier to look, I guess I can see this album's appeal. But for me, it's a very light 5 out of 10, and only a recommendation if you're a hardcore Big Sean fan. Otherwise, if you're looking for a hip-hop record with real wit, raw power, technical wordplay, and the hooks to really back it up, well, all hands by Doomtree isn't going anywhere. I'll take that instead. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. If there's any other albums coming out that you want me to take a look at, or anything else that I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.